I mean, moving on to your profile again, I can see that, you transitioned from, quantitative finance to e-commerce.
Yeah.
Very interesting transition. What prompted this particular transition?
Yeah, I mean that was yeah, I moved to Germany and I was working still in finance for 3.5 years or so, in finance. And my role within finance had more transitioned. I was doing more in terms of, I was leading a team, but I was getting more, not really doing day-to-day work, let's say analytical work. It was more, I was more transitioning in terms of client engagement management, stakeholder management, and so on and so forth. And I felt I was going, I wouldn't say out of my depth, but I would say a little bit in a direction that maybe at that point I didn't really want. So I thought, there were two ways. I could try to do more quant finance work, or at least try something new. And, I think, causal inference was having some sort of, I wouldn't say revival, but I think a lot of businesses were starting to ask causal questions, right? And I think if we wind the clock back, it goes back to the early 2010s when I think Amazon was really the big, let's say, driver in terms of doing causal inference work in the industry, I would say. They hired a bunch of economists and so on and so forth. And a lot of people jumped on this causal inference train, especially in e-commerce. And with the likes of I think Pat Pachare, who was I think the chief economist at Amazon, who sadly passed away, and then you've got the likes of things like Susan Athey, who's a big advocate of causal inference methods in economics, and applying these to e-commerce. I think she does some work at Microsoft Research. I realized that there was a big opportunity for actually this type of work within the e-commerce industry. So, given sort of familial constraints, I was looking in Germany. I think this opportunity at Kaufland e-commerce came up, and they were looking for some people in causal inference to answer a lot of questions that they had. So things on loyalty, marketing, and so on and so forth. So I thought, let's try this. And it's been now 2.5 years, and it's been great. It's very thought-provoking work, and I wouldn't say it's easy. It's really, really challenging. And I think we'll talk about this, but I think some of the applications of causal inference are in real life are actually so challenging that they don't lend themselves really to nice, easy methods, right? You have to, like, you might be doing some matching, but you have to consider all these issues because that's how the market works, which are not necessarily inherent if you just matched, so to speak, based on some data that you have, right? And I think that's the key. You have to look at what industry are you working in, like idiosyncrasies about the actual company and the environment and how people select and so on and so forth. And I think that's the really interesting part for me, like combining these two things.